The brooding poet of rock, Jim Morrison, may have captivated audiences with his hypnotic stage presence and dark charisma.
Country in your eyes, arms are changing, eyes are lying, bring on.
But beneath that leather-clad exterior lurked one of music's most uncompromising critics. Throughout his meteoric rise and tragic fall, Morrison never hesitated to condemn what he saw as musical inauthenticity. "The only truth is music," he once reportedly told a journalist from Crawdaddy magazine. "Everything else is lies." From pop sensations to fellow rock pioneers, Morrison's contemptuous dismissals spared no one in the industry. His musical feuds weren't just petty squabbles. They were the judgments of a self-styled shaman who viewed rock not as entertainment, but as revolution. Today, we're counting down the 6 bands that provoked the Lizard King's most venomous criticisms. The musical acts that Morrison deemed unworthy of the cultural power they wielded, the confrontations that defined generational divides, and the artistic differences that revealed Morrison's uncompromising vision of what rock music should be. The Monkees. Morrison's loathing for television's manufactured answer to the Beatles represents one of his most visceral rejections of commercialized rock music. The animosity reportedly began in 1967 when both the Doors and the Monkees were climbing the charts. At a party in Los Angeles, Morrison allegedly cornered Monkees drummer Mickey Dolenz and delivered a blistering assessment. "You're not musicians. You're actors playing dress-up while real artists struggle for recognition." When Dolenz attempted to defend their music, Morrison reportedly laughed and said, "The day corporate America can manufacture authentic art is the day I'll cut my hair and join the system." What particularly enraged Morrison was the public's inability to distinguish between manufactured pop and what he considered authentic artistic expression. After seeing the Monkees on the cover of Rolling Stone, Morrison reportedly told keyboardist Ray Manzarek, "This is why America is dying spiritually. They can't tell the difference between plastic and flesh, between television and reality." The tension escalated when both bands appeared on the same bill at a 1967 concert. According to a roadie who worked the show, Morrison refused to acknowledge the Monkees backstage, referring to them only as the cartoon band. When a radio DJ later asked Morrison about the Monkees' popularity, he allegedly sneered, "Popular? So is fast food. Both will make you sick if you consume too much." Even as the Monkees began writing their own material and fighting for creative control, Morrison remained unimpressed. "Putting instruments in the hands of actors doesn't make them musicians," he reportedly told an interviewer. "It makes them props in an elaborate marketing scheme." The Beach Boys. Morrison's contempt for the Beach Boys epitomized the clash between his dark, poetic vision of America and the sunny California mythology that Brian Wilson and company had cultivated. Their rivalry began in earnest after both bands emerged from the Los Angeles scene with dramatically different sounds and messages. At an industry party in 1966, Morrison reportedly dismissed the Beach Boys' harmonies as suburban lullabies for the emotionally stunted. According to a witness, when someone mentioned the Beach Boys' complex arrangements, Morrison shot back, "Complexity without substance is just noise. They've composed the soundtrack for a California that doesn't exist except in white picket fantasies." What seemed to particularly infuriate Morrison was the Beach Boys' commercial appeal, while the Doors struggled initially to get airplay for their darker material. After "Light My Fire" was edited for radio against the band's wishes, Morrison allegedly told a reporter off the record, "The Beach Boys sing about surfing and cars and get embraced by America. We sing about the darkness beneath the surface, and they want us censored. That tells you everything about the hypocrisy of this culture." The philosophical divide deepened, even as both bands evolved musically. When Pet Sounds was heralded as a masterpiece, Morrison reportedly told Doors producer Paul Rothchild, "Innovative production doesn't compensate for lyrics that never venture beyond a teenager's diary. I'm trying to wake people up. They're trying to help them sleep better." After a chance encounter with Wilson at Sunset Sound Studios, witnesses reported that Morrison seemed unmoved by Wilson's musical innovations, later telling his bandmates, "Technical brilliance without a message is just expensive emptiness. America doesn't need more beautiful distractions. It needs the truth, however ugly." The Beatles. Morrison's complicated relationship with the Beatles reveals his conflicted views on their evolution from pop sensations to cultural revolutionaries. In the early days of The Doors, Morrison allegedly dismissed the Beatles' initial catalog as bubblegum poetry set to clever hooks. According to Doors guitarist Robbie Krieger, after hearing "I Want to Hold Your Hand," Morrison scoffed, "This is what passes for rebellion? Holding hands? The real revolution won't be so polite." The dynamic shifted somewhat when the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which impressed Morrison with its ambition, if not its execution. At a recording session shortly after the album's release, Morrison reportedly told engineer Bruce Botnick, "They're finally trying to say something, but they're wrapping the message in so much whimsy that it loses its power. Revolution isn't a costume party." Morrison's dismissal turned particularly harsh when the Beatles embraced transcendental meditation. After seeing photos of the band in India with the Maharishi, Morrison allegedly told a journalist from Circus magazine, "Spiritual tourism for the privileged." They've traded one form of escape for another. Real enlightenment comes through confrontation with the darkness, not by chanting it away. What seemed to irritate Morrison most was the universal adoration the Beatles received. After John Lennon's "more popular than Jesus" controversy, Morrison reportedly remarked to friends, "At least he acknowledged the absurdity of their worship. But admitting you're part of the disease doesn't cure it." Despite these criticisms, Morrison reportedly respected the Beatles' later work, particularly their willingness to experiment sonically. As he allegedly told a radio interviewer in 1970, "They're finally catching up to where the rest of us started. Maybe in another 5 years they'll actually make something dangerous." Jefferson Airplane. Despite sharing the psychedelic rock landscape, Morrison's attitude toward Jefferson Airplane illustrates his disdain for what he saw as revolutionary posturing without substance. The tension reportedly began at the 1967 Human Bee Inn in San Francisco, where both bands performed. According to a witness, after watching Jefferson Airplane's set, Morrison muttered to Doors organist Ray Manzarek, "They're playing at Revolution like it's a costume they can take off after the show. True revolution isn't a fashion statement, it's a death sentence you willingly accept." Morrison particularly targeted the band's political messaging, which he considered superficial. After hearing Volunteers, he allegedly told a reporter from Crawdaddy, "Singing about revolution from the safety of a record contract isn't revolution. It's capitalism wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt. These people wouldn't recognize true freedom if it burned down their recording studio." The philosophical differences came to a head during a festival in 1968, where both bands were on the bill. Grace Slick reportedly attempted to engage Morrison in a discussion about music's role in changing consciousness. According to a stagehand who overheard the exchange, Morrison dismissively replied, "Consciousness doesn't need changing. It needs to be stripped naked and forced to face itself without the psychedelic light show. Your music is just another distraction from the void." What seemed to particularly irritate Morrison was Jefferson Airplane's embrace of the San Francisco scene's peace and love ethos. After a journalist compared the two bands, Morrison allegedly responded, "They're selling flowers and sunshine. I'm selling the truth that those flowers grow from graves and that sunshine burns. Only one of us is being honest about humanity." The Grateful Dead. Morrison's antagonism toward the Grateful Dead represents one of rock's great philosophical divides, between Morrison's confrontational approach to audience experience and the Dead's communion-like atmosphere. The rivalry reportedly began when both bands played the Fillmore in 1967. After watching the Dead's extended improvisational set, Morrison allegedly told Doors manager Bill Siddons, "That's not music. It's musical masturbation. They're so busy pleasuring themselves they've forgotten there's an audience. Art without boundaries isn't art. It's indulgence." What particularly irked Morrison was the Dead's approach to the psychedelic experience. After both bands performed at a benefit concert, Morrison reportedly cornered Jerry Garcia backstage and said, "You're using music to comfort people when you should be using it to wake them up. Your audience leaves reassured. Mine should leave disturbed." The contrast in performing styles highlighted their fundamental differences. While the Dead cultivated a communal experience with their audience, Morrison often antagonized his crowds. After a journalist noted this difference, Morrison allegedly replied, "The dead are serving musical comfort food. I'm serving a mirror that shows people what they're afraid to see. One approach creates fans, the other creates consciousness." LED Zeppelin. Morrison's alleged contempt for the rising stars of Led Zeppelin reveals his complex feelings about rock's evolution and his own legacy. Though the Doors and Led Zeppelin briefly shared the same cosmic moment in rock history, Morrison reportedly viewed the younger band as commercializing the mystical elements he had helped pioneer. After hearing their debut album in early 1969, Morrison allegedly told Doors producer Paul Rothchild, "They've taken the mysticism we brought to rock and turned it into a carnival act. The difference is intent. I'm trying to break through to the other side. They're trying to break through to the bank." Morrison particularly criticized Robert Plant's vocal style and stage presence. During a party where Zeppelin's music was playing, Morrison reportedly told a circle of friends, "He's borrowing my leather pants and my interest in the occult, but not my poetry or purpose. It's shamanism as theater, not as transformation." The philosophical rift deepened as Led Zeppelin's popularity exploded. When a journalist from Cream magazine asked Morrison about the band's meteoric rise, he allegedly responded, "Success in America is often inversely proportional to substance. They're giving audiences the illusion of depth without asking them to actually dive into the darkness. It's mysticism for people who are afraid of what they might find if they actually ventured beyond the veil." These feuds weren't just about personal dislike. They represented fundamental disagreements about music's purpose in society. Whether criticizing the Monkees for their manufactured origins, the Beach Boys for their sanitized California mythology, or Led Zeppelin for commercializing mysticism, Morrison consistently championed music as a vehicle for dangerous truths rather than comfortable illusions. As his legend continues to grow more than 5 decades after his death, Morrison's feuds have become as much a part of his mythology as his poetry. A testament to an artist who refused to separate his music from his mission, to shatter America's comforting delusions. If you enjoyed this exploration of the Lizard King's most notorious musical rivalries, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into rock history, and share your thoughts in the comments. Were Morrison's criticisms justified, or was he too harsh on his contemporaries? Drop your opinion below and join the conversation.